Prologue. The last broadcast. The tape begins with static, then a breath. If anyone finds this, don't follow the voice. Whatever it tells you, don't follow it. The man's voice trembles. He's panting, whispering, somewhere deep in the woods. It sounds like me now. It sounds exactly like me. Then, silence. Only the hum of the forest, the wind, and something faint in the distance. Something whispering. The date stamp reads October 14. Check 14 20 for Lausen, showed for summer toys tourism. The location tag, Black Hollow National Reserve. Chapter 1, The Expedition. 10 years later, a group of 4 friends decided to investigate. Lena, a wilderness survival YouTuber known for her realistic expeditions. Chris, her boyfriend and cameraman. Naomi, a sound engineer who specialized in nature recordings. Eli, a skeptic, and the one who found the mysterious 2012 tape online. They called the trip Echo Hunt. The idea was to locate the source of a strange legend, a forest where every sound you make comes back to you, not as an echo, but as something slightly wrong. The locals called it the forest that whispers back. Chapter 2, The Legend. The legend went like this. Deep inside Black Hollow, there's a hollow path that doesn't appear on maps. If you walk far enough, you start hearing your own voice repeating your words back to you, but slightly delayed, slightly changed. Sometimes it answers. The locals said that once you hear your own voice ask you to come closer, it's already too late. That's where the missing hikers vanished in 2012. The ones from the tape. Chapter 3, The Arrival. Lena's vlog began upbeat. 3 days, 4 people, 1 haunted forest. Let's find the truth behind Black Hollow. They hiked 5 miles in before setting up base camp near a stream. The first night was quiet, peaceful even. Only the sound of crickets and running water. But around 2:37 a.m., Naomi woke to the sound of someone talking near the trees. It sounded like Lena, laughing softly. Except Lena was asleep in her tent. When Naomi stepped outside, the woods were still. Then, Naomi, her own name, whispered back to her from the dark, in her own voice. Chapter 4, The Recordings. The next morning, Naomi checked her audio recorder. She'd left it running overnight, picking up ambient forest sounds. At 2:37 a.m., the waveform spiked. When she played it back, her voice came through clearly. Naomi, come here. Then silence. Then, faintly, over the static, another voice whispered, "You shouldn't have answered." Chapter 5, The Echo Path. On the second day, they followed an old ranger's map toward what locals called the Hollow Trail. It wasn't marked, just a narrow, winding path between 2 massive birch trees. The air grew colder. Even birds stopped singing. Naomi started hearing it again. Every time she spoke, she'd hear her words come back, not from behind, but from ahead. Are you hearing this? Are you hearing this? But the returning voice didn't sound exactly right. It had a rasp, a breath between the syllables, as if someone were repeating her words through their teeth. Chapter 6. The Cabin. By late afternoon, fog rolled in thick and sudden. Visibility dropped to a few meters. Then, through the mist, they saw it. An old ranger's cabin, half collapsed and covered in moss. Inside, they found signs of habitation. Old food cans, a typewriter, notebooks. The last entry in one of them read, "The forest speaks. I've seen the mouths on the trees. Don't follow your voice. It's not you anymore." Eli laughed it off. Urban legends. Probably some ranger losing it. But when Chris panned his camera toward the wall, he froze, scratched into the wood in dozens of overlapping lines. Don't follow yourself. Chapter 7. The Night Screams. That night, the forest woke up. Around midnight, they heard rustling outside. Lena grabbed her flashlight. Nothing. But Naomi's recorder picked up everything. A man's distant scream, then laughter, then silence. She played it back the next morning and realized the scream was Eli's voice. But Eli had been right next to her the entire time. When she told him, he just stared. Then who screamed first? Chapter 8. The Hollow Faces. The fog didn't lift the next day. They decided to turn back, but every path they took circled back to the cabin. Lena checked her GPS. It spun endlessly, unable to find north. That's when they saw them, shapes in the mist, human-like silhouettes, standing perfectly still among the trees. When Lena shone her flashlight on one, it vanished. Only bark and roots remained. But for a moment, the bark had looked like skin, stretched tight over something breathing. Chapter 9. The second tape. Inside a drawer, Naomi found another tape, labeled Day 5. Stay quiet. They played it on her field recorder. At first, it was just footsteps and breathing. Then a man whispered, "Don't respond. It copies you." Then, another voice, identical to his own. "Don't respond. It copies you." Followed by static, and then the unmistakable sound of a camera dropping into dirt, and a chorus of whispers repeating his every breath. Chapter 10. The Disappearance. That night, Eli vanished. His tent was empty, his boots gone. Only his camera remained, its red light still blinking. The footage showed him walking into the fog, flashlight trembling. He kept whispering, "It's calling my name. It sounds like you guys." At the last frame, he turned the camera toward his face. Behind him, another Eli, identical, smiling faintly. Then the feed cut. Chapter 11. The Wood Shift. By morning, everything changed. The stream was gone. The cabin door now opened to a hallway of trees, and the sunlight never broke through the fog. Naomi panicked. She swore she heard Eli's voice calling from nearby. "Naomi, come on, I found the road." She ran toward it. Chris grabbed her. "That's not him," she screamed. "It is. He needs help." And then, silence. The forest swallowed her sound. Chapter 12. The Tree. Hours later, Lena found her, standing motionless against a tree trunk. Her skin was pale gray, her eyes glassy. When Lena touched her shoulder, her head turned. Slowly, too slowly, Naomi's mouth opened, but her voice came out delayed, half a second behind her lips. Don't let it talk. Then she fell forward, mouth open. Her throat was full of fine white roots. Chapter 13. The whispers grow louder. Lena and Chris fled through the forest. The whispers followed them. Soft at first, then multiplying. Every tree they passed seemed to breathe. Chris shouted, "We have to keep moving." His voice echoed back instantly. "We have to keep moving. We have to keep moving." Dozens of voices, all his own. Then one whisper rose above the rest. Not his. "Stop running." Chapter 14. The Return. They stumbled into a clearing. In the middle stood an old, rusted radio tower, half collapsed. The same tower from the 2012 disappearance report. Static hissed from a broken speaker near its base. Then a voice. Eli's. "Lena, don't move. It's right behind you." She froze. Chris swung his flashlight around. Nothing. Then the voice continued. "Chris, you too." Chris turned toward the speaker. "How do you know my name?" "Because I'm you." The tower went dark. Chapter 15. The Mouth in the Tree. Lena and Chris found a new path leading downhill. Or so they thought. It led them to a clearing filled with hundreds of tree trunks, each with a hollow knot near the base. Naomi's voice whispered from one, Eli's from another, then Chris's. Each hollow pulsed slightly like lungs. When Lena leaned closer, she saw. They weren't knots, they were mouths. And they were mouthing her words before she spoke them. Chapter 16. The Imitation. That night, Chris began to change. He stopped responding to her, just staring into the trees. When she shook him, his head turned mechanically. "We should stay. Chris, we need to leave. We should stay." His voice was slightly distorted, an echo beneath his words. She stepped back. He smiled. "You can join us, Lena. You already sound like me." Chapter 17. The Last Recording. Her final footage, found later by rescuers, begins with heavy breathing. She's alone, whispering into the camera. They took him. They all talk in his voice now. Every sound, every whisper, it's him. Branches snap in the distance. I can hear them calling. They keep saying I'm home. The camera trembles as she walks toward the trees. Whispers overlap, hundreds of them. Her voice repeats every sentence one beat behind her. Then another Lena steps out from the fog, identical, smiling. "I told you not to follow yourself." The screen cuts to black. Epilogue. The forest still speaks. Rescue teams found only the cameras. No bodies, no footprints. But Naomi's recorder, still running, captured something chilling. At exactly 3:17 a.m., a single whisper. "We're still here." Then faint laughter from 4 different voices, all the same. Prologue. The Missing Family. In November 1998, the Harper family disappeared from their farmhouse in rural Maine. No signs of struggle, no footprints, no bodies. The police found their dinner still warm on the table and a VHS tape in the living room. The tape contained one continuous shot, a view of the front door from inside the house. The camera never moved. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m. saw the door opened, and someone whispered, "We see you." The screen went black. Chapter 1. The Researcher. 25 years later, Grace Nolan, a graduate student in digital forensics, was writing her thesis on unsolved disappearances. She came across the Harper case and found something odd. The VHS tape wasn't destroyed. It was archived in a restricted evidence room at a university she could access. Grace thought she'd found a perfect story, a forgotten mystery to turn into her viral documentary. She didn't believe in hauntings or cursed objects until she watched the tape herself. Chapter 2. The Viewing. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. The camera faced the door, as described, but Grace noticed something the police hadn't mentioned. Every time the tape flickered, the shadows on the walls changed shape. Sometimes they looked like human outlines, standing just out of frame. At 3:12 a.m., when the door creaked open, the whisper came again. "We see you." Grace's reflection in the dark TV screen seemed to smile, but she wasn't smiling. Chapter 3. The Call. That night, she woke up to a phone ringing. The number on the caller ID was 00 00. She answered half asleep. A distorted voice whispered, "Did you see us?" The line went dead. She checked her phone's call log. No incoming calls, but her recording app had automatically saved a new file. Harper House 3:12 a.m.wav, timestamped for 3:12 a.m. Chapter 4. The Town of Hollow Creek. Grace decided to visit the Harper property, located near the abandoned town of Hollow Creek. Locals warned her not to go. They said strange lights still flickered in the windows. Though the electricity had been cut decades ago, she found the house decaying but intact. The wallpaper peeled in strips like dead skin. Every mirror in the house had been turned to face the wall. In the living room, she found the same old camera on a tripod, still pointed at the door. The tape inside was labeled 12th Recording. Chapter 5. The second tape. Back at her motel, Grace played the second tape. It looked almost identical. Same camera angle, same door. But this time, a faint figure could be seen reflected in the window. A tall, faceless man in dark clothing. At 3:12 a.m., instead of whispering, the door opened wider, and the camera tilted slightly to the left, as if someone or something had brushed past it. Then a voice said, "We remember you." Chapter 6. The Audio Distortion. Grace extracted the sound frequencies from the tape. When she slowed the whisper down 400%, she realized it wasn't one voice. It was dozens, layered together. Men, women, children, all saying the same phrase in different tones. She filtered out the background hum. Underneath, she heard her own name. Grace. She shut her laptop. Chapter 7. The Mirror Room. She returned to the Harper house the next evening, determined to film her own documentary. Her flashlight beam cut through the dust like fog. Upstairs, she found a small room that hadn't appeared on the blueprints. The door was nailed shut from the outside. She pried it open. Inside, every wall was covered with mirrors, floor to ceiling. But the reflections didn't match reality. In the glass, the wallpaper was new, the air clean, and the Harper family stood smiling around a dinner table. Then, in the reflection, they all turned toward her at once. Chapter 8. The Photograph. Grace ran outside, snapping photos in panic. But when she checked the pictures later, every photo showed her standing in the mirror room, except she hadn't been inside long enough to pose. And in the final photo, her reflection's eyes were black. She deleted the images, but they reappeared the next morning in her gallery, time-stamped again at 3:12 a.m. Chapter 9. The Neighbor. She interviewed a nearby farmer who had lived there in the 90s. He said he'd seen the Harpers just days before they vanished. They said the house watched them, the man whispered. They said the walls had eyes. When police searched later, they found something beneath the floorboards. Dozens of small holes drilled into the wood, like peepholes. But behind them wasn't empty space. It was glass, like something had been watching from inside the walls. Chapter 10. The Repetition. Grace checked the original police audio logs from 1998. At the end of one officer's body cam tape, she heard the same voice whisper, "We see you." She compared it with her own 3:12 a.m. recording. The waveforms were identical, as if recorded in the same moment, 25 years apart. Chapter 11. The Return. The next night, she set up her own camera in the Harper house. She pointed it at the door, hit record, and left to stay in her car nearby. At 3:12 a.m., her camera transmitted a live feed to her laptop. The door slowly creaked open, and on the screen, her own figure entered the frame. Even though she was outside, her reflection walked calmly to the camera and whispered, "We see you." Chapter 12. The Vanishing. The next morning, Grace's car was found abandoned. Her camera continued to stream live footage. An empty room, the door still open. Every night at 3:12 a.m., a faint figure walks past the lens. Investigators found her laptop still running. On the desktop, one new video file had appeared automatically. 13th recording. When opened, it played a continuous 40-minute shot of the same door. But this time, Grace's voice narrated softly. "If you're hearing this, don't watch the door. It's already watching you." Epilogue. The live stream. Months later, a YouTube channel appeared out of nowhere. Harper House 13. It streams every night at 3:12 a.m. A single camera angle. The door. Sometimes a woman's shadow crosses the screen. Sometimes a faint whisper says the viewer's name. Comments flood in from terrified users claiming the same thing. "It said my name." When someone tries to report the channel, their accounts vanish. Their profile pictures turn into black silhouettes, eyes hidden behind static. The channel description changes weekly. This week it says, "We see you too." Prologue. The Forgotten Wing. They say Blackridge Psychiatric Hospital was shut down in 1979. Too many deaths, too many missing patients, but no one ever told the full story. not even the ones who worked there. When the building was demolished in 2022, construction workers unearthed a sealed underground hallway, one that wasn't on any blueprint. Inside, they found hundreds of audio reels labeled only with dates, and on the first reel's box was written in faded ink, "Do not play, they still hear." Chapter 1. The Documentarian. Eleanor Finch wasn't afraid of ghosts. She was a freelance journalist who specialized in investigating urban legends. When she heard about the unearthed tapes, she saw her next big documentary, Voices of the Forgotten. The Lost Files of Blackridge Hospital. The university that stored the reels granted her temporary access. They told her only one rule: never listen alone. Eleanor, of course, ignored it. Chapter 2. The First Tape. The first reel crackled with static. Then came a soft male voice, trembling but calm. Patient 12B, recording session 1, testing for residual memory response. A pause, then a whisper. Faint, almost inaudible. "Can you hear me now?" The doctor gasped. The whisper had come from the playback speaker, not from the patient. The recording continued, filled with scratching sounds and muffled cries. At the end, the same whisper repeated, "We remember you." Eleanor felt her skin crawl. The timestamp on the tape was 3:00 Arxamum Vestitini and Tardiang Spurniactor Chalom. The so-called hour of the silent ward, when all the lights at Blackridge were rumored to go out. Chapter 3. The Blueprints. Eleanor visited the ruins of the hospital. Rain dripped through cracked ceilings. She found the old patient files in a rusted filing cabinet, and one stood out. Patient 12B. No name, no photograph, just a note scrawled in red ink. "Do not isolate. Do not record." The voice spreads. In the same drawer was a blueprint of the hospital, and at the bottom, a scribble that wasn't part of the plan. "There's a room beneath the morgue." Chapter 4. The Descent. She found the entrance under the morgue's broken tiles, a metal door sealed with chains. When she cut them open, a rush of freezing air came out, carrying the faint echo of voices. The staircase descended deep into blackness. Her flashlight flickered as she filmed the descent. The walls were lined with soundproof panels, most of them clawed open. In the darkness, she heard something whisper her name. Eleanor. She froze. No one knew she was there. Chapter 5. The Room with No Sound. At the bottom of the stairs, she found a massive metal door labeled Audio Containment. When she pushed it open, she entered a windowless chamber filled with old microphones and tape machines. Each mic had a nameplate: 12B, 13A, 14C, all unplugged except one. It was still recording. The reel spun slowly, though the power was off. When she checked the reel's label, her blood ran cold. It said, Session 201, Subject E. Finch. Chapter 6. The Second Voice. She rewound the reel and pressed play. Static, breathing, then her own voice. Shaky, but unmistakable. Testing. "Can you hear me?" Followed by another voice, identical to hers. "Yes, Eleanor. We've always heard you." The tape screeched, and the machines started whirring on their own. All the unplugged microphones began to hiss, whispering dozens of overlapping voices. We never left. We live in the echoes. Now you're part of it. She ripped the tape out and ran. Chapter 7. The Whisper in the Car. Eleanor made it back to her car, drenched in sweat. She locked the doors, started the engine, and placed her recorder on the seat beside her. She replayed her own field audio. At first it was normal. Her footsteps, her breathing. Then, faintly, beneath it, came another voice. You didn't leave. The sound grew louder each time she hit rewind. When she looked at the rear-view mirror, the hospital door was still open. And in the reflection, she saw someone standing at the top of the stairs, herself, watching her leave. Chapter 8. The Historian. Eleanor turned to Dr. Grant Harlow, a retired psychiatrist who once worked at Blackridge. He refused to speak of 12B, but after an hour he sighed and said, "It wasn't a patient. 12B was a recording." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "They discovered something. A frequency. It didn't need bodies to spread. It used sound. People who heard it. They changed. Some said the voice learned to imitate them. When she asked where the voice came from, he just said, 'Not from here.'" Chapter 9. The hospital returns. That night, she uploaded a teaser of her footage online. It went viral within hours. Millions of views, people analyzing the whispers. Then strange things began happening to her viewers. One by one, they reported hearing faint breathing from their headphones while watching. Some swore the video whispered their name at the 33-minute mark. Some claimed they saw Eleanor standing behind them in the reflection of their screen. YouTube automatically flagged the video for unidentified audio anomalies, but the upload wouldn't delete. Every time she tried, the file duplicated itself. Chapter 10. The Lost Broadcast. Eleanor decided to record one final entry, a full explanation before she vanished completely. She began, "If you're hearing this, please listen carefully. The voice is real. It hides inside frequencies below what we can detect. Once you hear it, it hears you back." As she spoke, her mic began to distort. Her voice layered over itself. Higher, deeper, whispering from the static. "We are already here. You are the echo now." Her recording ended with a single tone. 3:03 a.m., the hour of the silent ward. Chapter 11. The audio files. A year later, the university reopened the case. In their database, Eleanor's folder had expanded by itself. Hundreds of new audio files, all named Session Tyson 2, Session 203, and so on. Each file contained the same voice, whispering new names. The most recent one, Session 248, Subject You. The sound engineers found something else. Each file had metadata showing real-time playback activity, even though they'd been disconnected from the server. Someone or something was still listening. Chapter 12. The live stream. Weeks later, an unknown channel appeared on YouTube. The username was Blackridge Echo 303. The channel streamed every night at 3:00 or air seat. FM voice. Hemos donuts. The thumbnail was a static screen with faint movement in the background. When viewers turned up the volume, they could hear whispers forming words. Each night, the stream's title changed automatically. The last title read, "Tonight's subject, everyone listening." And in the background, just for a second, you could see Eleanor's silhouette, sitting in the dark, facing a spinning reel. Epilogue. The sound beneath the silence. Years later, sound engineers studying the Blackridge tapes discovered an unsettling pattern. The frequency hidden inside the recordings matched the natural resonance of the human skull, meaning the sound didn't just echo through you, it echoed inside you. And when they played it backward, slowed down 1000%, one phrase repeated endlessly beneath the static. "We hear you. You will hear us soon." The file ended, but the waveform kept moving, as if something somewhere was still speaking. They say every town has a house no one talks about. In the small town of Millbrook, that house stood at the very end of Ashwood Lane. Its paint had long peeled away. The windows were boarded, and a dying oak tree leaned over the roof like a crooked finger. For decades, people said you could hear whispers coming from inside, especially after midnight. Whispers that didn't sound quite human. No one lived there anymore. But one night, someone returned. Chapter 1. The Return. Sarah Collins hadn't planned to come back to Millbrook. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. But when her aunt passed away and left her the family property, Sarah had no choice. She was broke, recently divorced, and living in a one-room apartment in the city. So she packed her bags, drove 6 hours, and arrived at dusk to that house, her childhood home, the Whispering House. She remembered flashes, her mother screaming in the night, her father leaving without a word, the smell of something burning. The rest was a blur, like her mind had locked it away for a reason. The front door creaked open with a single push. The air inside was thick and cold, as if the house had been holding its breath for years. Her phone lost signal the moment she stepped in. Chapter 2. The First Night. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Every sound, the ticking pipes, the shifting wood, felt alive. Around 2:37 a.m., she heard it. A whisper, soft, gentle, coming from the upstairs hallway. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. At first, she thought it was the wind, but then it came again. Clearer this time. "Sarah, come upstairs." Her breath caught. She recognized that voice. It was her mother's. But her mother had died 20 years ago. Sarah grabbed her flashlight and crept into the hallway. The whisper led her to her old bedroom, the one with the yellow wallpaper and broken toys still on the shelves. She pushed it slowly. Inside, the room was empty, except for the mirror on the wall, a mirror that hadn't been there before. Chapter 3. The Mirror. The glass was fogged, as if someone had been breathing on the other side. When she wiped it clean, for just a second, she saw something move. A shape, small, pale, watching her from inside the reflection. Then the whisper came again, right next to her ear. "You shouldn't have come back." She screamed and stumbled backward, knocking the lamp to the floor. When the light flickered, the mirror was empty again. Sarah didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Chapter 4. The Journal. The next morning, she found an old wooden box under her bed. Inside, a leather-bound journal belonging to her mother. The first page read, "The voices began when Sarah turned 6. They whispered to her at night. They say they want her back." Page after page, her mother had written about the house watching them, and about something she called the Hollow One, a shadow in the walls that mimicked people's voices. The last entry was dated the night before her mother died. It ended mid-sentence. "It's here again. It knows she's alone. I have to." The rest was scratched out violently with ink. Chapter 5. The Hollow One. That evening, Sarah heard footsteps upstairs while she was in the kitchen. Slow, heavy, but the house was empty. She climbed the stairs trembling and saw the mirror again, now standing in the middle of the hallway. Its reflection showed the entire corridor, except there was something wrong. In the mirror, a figure stood behind her, tall, faceless, its head tilted slightly to the side. Sarah turned around. No one there. When she looked back, the figure in the mirror had moved closer, until its head was almost touching the glass. She ran downstairs, locked herself in the car, and stayed there until dawn. But in the reflection of the car window, she swore she saw it again, standing on the porch, watching. Chapter 6. The Voice Recordings. The next day, Sarah called her friend Daniel, a podcaster who specialized in paranormal stories. He agreed to come and spend a night recording audio evidence. They set up voice recorders in every room. At midnight, they started to hear faint whispers, captured on every device. One of them said, "Help me." Another whispered, "She belongs here." And then, faintly, Daniel's voice, even though he hadn't spoken, repeated, "She belongs here." When Daniel checked the recorder's time code, his face turned pale. The whisper had been recorded 5 minutes before they even entered the house. Chapter 7. The Basement Door. Around 3 a.m., they found a locked door behind the old wallpaper in the hallway. Daniel pried it open with a crowbar. Behind it, a staircase leading down into the basement. The air was freezing. Their flashlights flickered. The walls were covered in drawings, dozens of them, all of the same figure, a tall shadow with no face, watching a little girl sleep. At the center of the room stood another mirror. This one was cracked, and behind the cracks, something moved. Daniel leaned closer, whispering, "Are you seeing this?" A hand reached out from the crack, thin, gray, trembling, and grabbed him. Chapter 8. The Thing in the Mirror. Daniel screamed as the gray hand yanked him toward the glass. The mirror's surface rippled like water, and for a heartbeat, Sarah saw his face inside it, pounding, begging for help. Then he was gone. The mirror went still. Only his flashlight remained on the dusty floor, spinning slowly until it stopped. Pointing at her feet, Sarah stood frozen, unable to breathe. Then the whisper came from inside the mirror. "You brought him here. Now you'll stay too." Her own reflection blinked, but she hadn't. And then it smiled. She ran upstairs, slamming the basement door shut and barricading it with a chair. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely dial 911. The line connected, but all she heard was her own voice, whispering, "It's too late." The call cut off. Chapter 9. The Town's Secret. At sunrise, Sarah drove to the local library, the only place still open that early. She searched through old newspapers, desperate for answers. She she found an article dated October 13th, 1989. Local family disappears. Father found dead in mirror room. The photo showed her house, the same house she'd inherited. Another clipping a few years later. Child survivor placed in foster care. Memory loss reported. Her name was at the bottom, Sarah Collins. She dropped the paper, trembling. Her childhood memories, the screaming, the smoke, weren't nightmares. They were real. Her father had tried to burn the house down, but someone had stopped him. Chapter 10. Return to the basement. That night, she came back armed with salt, candles, and a hammer. If the mirror took Daniel, she would take him back. The air grew colder as she approached the basement. The whispers started again. Dozens of voices overlapping, crying, laughing, calling her name. Sarah, come home. Join us. The door creaked open on its own. The basement looked different now. Endless, like a tunnel of mirrors reflecting forever. In each reflection she saw herself, but not quite. Some older, some twisted, some screaming silently. And in the farthest reflection she saw Daniel. He was standing still, pale, his eyes completely white. "You shouldn't have come back," he whispered. But his lips didn't move. The mirrors around him began to pulse like veins, and from the cracks, hundreds of gray hands started crawling out. Chapter 11. The Hollow One Speaks. Sarah smashed the first mirror with a hammer. The sound was like thunder. Black liquid spilled out, thick as oil, smelling of rot. The voices screamed all at once, shaking the walls. Then the figure appeared. Tall, faceless, made of the same darkness. Its voice wasn't loud. It whispered directly into her head. "You were born here. You never left. You think you did." She stumbled backward. "That's not true. I left this place." "Did you?" "Look closer." The creature's hand pointed toward a broken mirror. In the reflection, she wasn't holding a hammer. She was standing inside the mirror, looking out. Her body froze. The realization hit like ice. She'd never really escaped. The house hadn't let her go. The Sarah outside, the one who thought she grew up, left, lived a whole life, was just a reflection, walking in the world while she remained trapped inside. Chapter 12. The Last Reflection. The whispers turned into laughter. The mirrors flickered like TV screens, showing her memories. Her apartment, her ex-husband, her city life, all distorted, melting away. "You live only because I reflect you," said the Hollow One. But every reflection fades. It reached for her. She raised the hammer one last time and screamed, smashing the mirror before it could touch her. The world shattered. Glass, light, and silence. Epilogue. A month later, the Maple County Police entered the abandoned house after reports of lights flickering inside. They found no one, only a dusty recorder lying near a broken mirror. On it was a single voice, a woman's, whispering softly, "If you find this, don't look in the mirror." The recording ends with faint breathing. Then a second voice, identical to hers, whispering back, "But I already am." The tape clicks. Silence. The voice beneath the lake. Prologue. There's a lake in northern Maine that doesn't appear on most maps. Locals call it Elder's Hollow. They say that when the fog rolls in at night, You can hear someone calling your name from the water, and if you answer, you never come back the same. Chapter 1: The Assignment. Liam Foster was a documentary filmmaker. Not famous, but dedicated. He specialized in real haunted places, the kind of YouTube documentaries that built loyal followings of night owls and skeptics alike. When an anonymous viewer emailed him coordinates to an unnamed lake in Maine, claiming it was the most haunted place in the US, he felt the rush of curiosity that always preceded something terrible. The email had only one line beneath the coordinates. The voice beneath isn't what it seems. Liam packed his camera gear, drone, tent, and audio recorders. He was driving there alone. Chapter 2: The Vanishing Town. The GPS stopped working halfway there. No signal, no bars, only pine trees and the endless hum of his car's tires. By dusk, he reached what used to be the town of Marrow Creek. It wasn't on modern maps anymore. Just a scattering of rotting houses, half swallowed by the forest. He parked near the lake. The water was black and still, reflecting the dying light like a mirror. The first thing he noticed was the silence. No birds, no wind, just quiet. He set up camp, filmed his intro. It's October 13th, 11:47 p.m., and I'm here to spend the night at Elders Hollow Lake, said to be home to the voice beneath, and hit record. Chapter 3: The First Night. Around 2:00 a.m., while recording ambient audio, Liam heard it. A voice, faint, distant, calling his name. Liam, he froze. The air was still. The lake was calm. He whispered into the recorder, "If someone's out there, say that again." Silence, then Liam. He scanned the tree line with his flashlight. No movement. Then from the lake, a ripple, as if something had surfaced and sunk again. He tried to convince himself it was the wind, but deep down, he knew it wasn't. Chapter 4: The Whisper Recording. The next morning, Liam reviewed his audio footage. At the 2:14 a.m. mark, he heard something that chilled him. The voice wasn't just calling his name. It was repeating his own words from the night before. In the same tone, the same inflection, but slower, deeper, distorted. "If someone's out there, say that again." It wasn't an echo. It was mimicry. He uploaded a short clip to his YouTube channel as a teaser. Within hours, thousands of comments poured in. Some said it was fake. Some said they heard something else in the background. A second whisper beneath the main one saying, "Come closer." Chapter 5: The Old Cabin. That afternoon, he found a narrow trail leading around the lake. Halfway through, he discovered a collapsed cabin, eaten by moss. Inside was a rusted bed frame, a broken camera tripod, and a leather notebook. The first page read, March 7th, 1983, "We've been hearing her again. The lake keeps calling our names." The entries that followed told the story of a family that moved to the lake decades ago. Each night, they heard voices mimicking their loved ones, even those who'd already died. The final entry ended abruptly. "She's beneath the ice now. I can see her face through the cracks." Liam shut the book. His hands were trembling. When he looked outside, fog had rolled across the lake, thick and white, swallowing the shoreline. Chapter 6: The Drone Footage. That night, he launched his drone to capture aerial shots. Through the camera feed, the fog looked alive, writhing, almost breathing. As he flew over the center of the lake, something appeared beneath the surface. At first, it looked like a pale shape, a stone maybe. Then it moved. It was a face, eyes wide open, mouth distorted in a silent scream. The drone signal cut out. When Liam checked the footage later, the timestamp glitched, jumping backward by exactly 13 seconds, over and over again. Chapter 7, The Voice of the Dead. The voice returned that night. Stronger, closer. "Liam, help me." He recognized it this time. It was his sister's voice. His sister had drowned when he was 10 years old. He dropped his camera, heart pounding, and stumbled toward the water's edge. There, through the fog, he saw a silhouette, small, familiar, standing knee-deep in the lake. "Mia," he whispered. The figure turned. Its eyes glowed white, and then it smiled, impossibly wide. He ran. Chapter 8, The Tape. Inside his tent, Liam locked the zipper and played the last recording from his camera. Static, then whispering, dozens of overlapping voices. When slowed down, the whispers formed words. "Under the lake. Follow the sound. We are waiting." He scrolled through old news archives he'd saved offline. There it was. A headline from 1984. "Family of 6 vanishes near Marrow Creek. Only the youngest daughter's body recovered, found beneath the frozen lake. Her name was Mia Foster." Chapter 9, The Descent. The next morning, Liam tied a rope around his waist and prepared to dive. The camera was strapped to his chest. He wasn't leaving without answers. The water was freezing. Visibility less than a meter, but at a depth of 10 feet, he saw something that didn't belong. A wooden structure, like an old pier, collapsed under the water. He swam closer. Carvings covered the planks. Words in Latin, crudely scratched. "Vocem tenebris," voice of darkness. And beneath it, in the silt, dozens of faces. Pale, still, eyes open. When he tried to swim back up, the rope pulled tight. Something was holding him. A whisper brushed against his ear underwater. "Stay." Chapter 10, The Other Side. He broke free and surfaced, gasping, pulling himself to shore. But something was wrong. The trees looked different. The cabin was gone, and the air was silent, unnaturally still. He checked his camera. The display flickered, showing a distorted reflection of himself. But the reflection smiled before he did. The voice spoke again. From behind him this time. "You never left the water." He turned and saw himself standing there, dripping wet, eyes black, smiling. Chapter 11, The Lost Footage. 2 weeks later, a group of hikers found Liam's tent, half submerged near the lake. His camera was still recording. Battery dead. On the recovered footage, Liam walks into the fog. Hours pass. At exactly 3:13 a.m., a second Liam emerges from the lake, expressionless, eyes hollow. He looks directly into the lens and says, "Do you hear it too?" Then the camera turns toward the water. Something massive moves beneath the surface, a shape stretching across the entire lake, whispering thousands of voices in unison. Chapter 12, The Upload. 3 days later, the footage appeared on Liam's YouTube channel. No one knows who uploaded it. The video was titled The Voice Beneath the Lake, full documentary, and it ended with Liam's voice, calm and familiar, saying, "If you hear your name while watching this, don't answer. It means the lake has already found you." In the comments, hundreds of viewers claim to have heard whispers through their headphones. This, some saying the voice called their real name. A few accounts disappeared shortly after posting. Epilogue. A park ranger reported that the lake's shoreline had begun to sink, forming new cracks around the water. When sonar equipment was lowered to measure its depth, the readings came back impossible. The lake floor was moving. At night, the fog returns thicker than ever, and if you stand quietly at the edge, you might hear a familiar voice saying your name. If you do, don't look at the water, because it's already looking back. Prologue. The abandoned hotel. There are places the map forgot. Places that feel hungry. The Ashpine Hotel was one of them, hidden deep in the fog of northern Vermont. It had once been a luxury mountain retreat in the 1950s. Symbol of glamour, jazz, and fine whiskey. But on December 23, 1976, everyone inside vanished. 37 guests, 9 staff members. No footprints, no struggle, no bodies. When police entered days later, every clock had stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m., and the power was still on. Though the town's grid had been dead for years, no one ever stayed there again. Until Ethan Cole arrived. Chapter 1. The documentary. Ethan wasn't a thrill seeker. He was a journalist. A quiet, skeptical man who didn't believe in ghosts. His channel, Dark Light Documentaries, focused on rationalizing paranormal myths, debunking hauntings, showing the science behind superstition. When his audience began begging for an investigation into Ashpine Hotel, he reluctantly agreed. It was perfect clickbait. A legendary disappearance, a real location, and a place untouched since the 70s. He booked a week to film there alone. One camera operator, his friend Mara, would join him later. He didn't know that was the last time anyone would hear from her. Chapter 2. The arrival. The drive up the mountain took nearly 3 hours. The road was narrow, the snow thick and blinding. When Ethan finally saw the Ashpine sign, it looked like a skeletal hand jutting from the fog. The hotel stood massive and silent. Its once golden letters rusted black. He stepped out, camera rolling. The silence was unnatural. Not even the sound of wind. Just the crunch of snow beneath his boots. Inside, the air smelled of dust and cold iron. The lobby looked untouched. Old armchairs draped in sheets. A chandelier still hanging crooked. The reception bell covered in frost. He rang it. It echoed. And somewhere deep within, something rang back. Chapter 3. The diary. In the manager's office, Ethan found a guest logbook open to the last date. December 20, 1986. The final entry read, Room 313, Mr. and Mrs. H. Lambert. Check-in, 7:45 p.m. Notes. Complained about flickering light. He flipped the page. Blank. Then, tucked inside, he found something else. A child's drawing, crumpled and yellowed. It showed the hotel. Every window dark except one. Room 313, glowing bright red. At the bottom, written in a shaky hand, Mommy says the light means it's listening. Chapter 4. The first night. Ethan set up his cameras around the building. He spoke into his recorder. Day 1, 11:08 p.m. No signs of structural collapse. No EMF spikes, no sound anomalies. He chose to sleep in the lobby near the fireplace. At exactly 3:17 a.m., his motion sensor beeped. He sat up, blinking into the dark. The hallway light upstairs, the one that hadn't worked earlier, was now glowing faintly. He checked his map. That hallway led to room 313. When he looked back at his footage in the morning, the light had flickered on 3 minutes before he woke, and for one frame, a figure stood in the hallway, too tall, its face blurred by static. Chapter 5. The Door. The next evening, Ethan climbed to the 3rd floor. The corridor smelled faintly of ozone and decay. Most of the doors were locked or swollen shut, except one. Room 313. Its door was slightly open. The key still hung in the lock. He called out softly, "Anyone here?" His breath fogged the air. Inside, everything was covered in dust, except the mirror. It was spotless, too clean. When he looked into it, the reflection was slightly delayed, like a video feed buffering. He raised his hand. The reflection raised it a second later. Then it smiled before he did. Chapter 6. The Voice Recorder. That night, he played back the day's audio. There was a faint hum beneath every clip, like electricity, but the hum seemed to form a rhythm, almost like whispering. He isolated the track. The waveform pulsed evenly. He slowed it down 800%. A woman's voice emerged. "Turn off the light. It's watching through the glass." Then a child's voice. "Don't go upstairs again." He checked the timestamp. It was recorded while he was asleep. Chapter 7. Mara's Arrival. On the 4th day Mara arrived, she was practical, calm, grounded, always skeptical. When Ethan told her about the voices, she laughed. "It's probably interference from your mic. Paranormal 101, bad frequencies make ghosts." They filmed together that evening. Empty hallways, peeling wallpaper, the silent dining hall. At midnight, Mara went to film B-roll upstairs. She radioed him 30 minutes later, whispering, "Ethan, who's in room 313? He froze. No one. Why? There's light coming from under the door, and someone's moving inside." The line went dead. Chapter 8. The Tape. He found her camera outside room 313, still recording. On the screen, she'd filmed the door, light leaking through the crack. Then the doorknob had turned slowly, and from behind the door, a child's voice whispered, "You're late." The door opened, and Mara screamed, not in fear, but confusion. "Ethan, why are you—" The tape cut to static. He burst inside the room. Empty, only her flashlight rolling on the floor. The mirror was cracked now, and in the reflection, both of them were still standing there. Chapter 9. The Radio. Panicking, Ethan ran to the lobby. He tried to call for help, but his phone had no signal. The hotel's old reception radio crackled to life. Static, then a faint voice. "Mara." It sounded like him. "Ethan, I'm here. Don't go. The door closes if you leave." He stared at the radio. "Where are you?" "Inside." He switched off the radio and backed away. It clicked on again, by itself, inside the mirror. Chapter 10. The elevator. He needed proof. Something real, tangible. So he decided to descend to the basement archives. The elevator hadn't worked since the 70s, but when he pressed the button, it opened. The down light flickered on. He stepped inside, camera rolling. The air smelled like burnt hair and dust. The button for B was already pressed. The doors shut. The elevator began to move, but the floor counter climbed up, not down. 4, 5, 6, 7. At floor 13, it stopped. The doors opened to a hallway that shouldn't exist. Every door was numbered 313. Chapter 11. The hallway of mirrors. Ethan moved forward slowly, heart pounding. Each door had a small glass window. Inside each one, a room identical to 3 to 13. Same furniture, same mirror, and in each mirror, a reflection of himself. But the reflections weren't synchronized. Some stared back blankly. Some mouthed words he couldn't hear. And one, the last one, raised its camera and filmed him. When he turned to run, every door opened at once. Chapter 12. The basement. He found a stairwell and ran down. The stairs seemed endless. When he finally reached the bottom, he was back where he started. The lobby. Only now, everything was wrong. The air shimmered like heat. The furniture had moved. And the clocks, every single one, read 3:17 a.m. He shouted for Mara. A whisper answered, directly behind him. "We told you not to turn on the light." He turned. The chandelier above him flickered red. Every bulb burst one by one. The hotel went dark. Chapter 13. The return to room 313. He ran back to the stairs. The third-floor hallway stretched longer than before, bending and twisting. Doors lined the walls endlessly, all numbered 313. He heard Mara's voice, calling softly from one of them. He followed the sound, trembling, desperate. The door opened on its own. Inside was Mara, smiling faintly. "You found me." He rushed to her, but she stepped back. Her face flickered, static around her eyes. Her voice warped. "We all found each other." Behind her, dozens of other figures stepped into the light, all identical to Ethan and Mara, each one smiling, whispering the same phrase, "Stay with us." Chapter 14. The mirror breaks. He grabbed the nearest chair and hurled it at the mirror. Glass exploded across the floor. The figures screamed, 1,000 voices merging into static. The room shuddered. He fell to the floor, gasping, bleeding from his palms. When he opened his eyes, the hotel was quiet again. No reflections, no light. He stumbled outside into the snow. The sky was gray. His car was gone. So was the road. And from inside the hotel, the lobby light flickered. A faint red glow. Room 313. Chapter 15. The recording. Weeks later, a rescue team found Ethan's camera buried in the snow half a mile down the mountain. The footage was intact. It showed him walking through the snow, muttering to himself. The light's still on. She's still inside. Then he turned the camera toward himself, his eyes wide, unfocused, and in the reflection of the lens, another face appeared behind him, Mara's, smiling. The camera fell. Static. The last thing heard was a child's voice. "It's your turn now." Epilogue. The return of the light. Today, hikers still see the faint glow of a light in the mountains near the ruins of the Ashpine Hotel. Sometimes red, sometimes white. Locals say it flickers exactly at 3:17 a.m. every night. And if you watch too long, your reflection in the window begins to move, even after you stop.